her her husband like strangled her, like, and we found out that he was essentially like a serial killer, and my aunt was like one of the women that he married and killed, and this was just like something that he did. He had wives in different places and he killed them.
Heal from the Ground Up coaches empaths and highly sensitive people who experience anxiety, anger, and depression to learn the revolutionary emotional strength FIST process that heals all your negative emotions, feelings, and problems from the ground up through intergenerational trauma healing by finding out whose movie are you in, so that you can stop being an emotional sponge, but a source of light that you shine onto the world. Welcome everybody to the Heal from the Ground Up show. Now for today, I'm coaching Tia Landers, and she feels lost being an entrepreneur because before she was working at a steady job, and now as an entrepreneur, she worries that she's gonna fail. She feels lost. She feels like she's not, keyword, in control. She feels powerless. An example of that is when her daughter, who she has bought enough outfits so she can wear a different outfit for 3 weeks in a row, when her daughter will wear one outfit Monday and wear the same exact outfit, even if it got dirtied, on Wednesday, and it will drive Tia mad and crazy. And there's other examples like her boyfriend who doesn't listen to her. When he's not listening intently to her, she'll lose it. And there's this feeling of not being in control, feeling of being powerless. Now, where did this all come from? It came from a past family trauma. And as you can tell, the title of this episode is the trauma, and more specifically, the intergenerational trauma of a past, of a family murder. That's right. So when Tia was 1 year old, her mother's sister was murdered by her very own husband, who was a serial killer. He had done this many times before. He had strangled her to death. And that's the trauma of the family, feeling powerless. And so I want you to keep this in mind as you watch the rest of this. The session is that you can see yourself by seeing her. You see her lost in the movie of her past family members, of the trauma of her past family members. And when you can see every single step, because I apply and have created the emotional strength FIST process will help you get to the root of all your negative emotions, feelings, and problems. And as I apply this process and knowing what's at the core of this, you can begin to see yourself and apply the process to yourself to go to the root of your own emotional pain, your own feelings and own problems. And this is going to work wonders. So we're ready to dive deep. Let's get ready to begin. I mean, the way I begin is first, I just want to hear what you like to focus on for today and how you are feeling.
Okay. So basically, what I kind of want to figure out, I'm kind of on this journey of trying to figure out what my quote unquote purpose is, or like passion, and how I can, figure that out in a way that it can help me grow a business or my business. Today, honestly, for the last few days, I've been kind of in a depressed mood, I would say. Very not wanting to be bothered with anybody, just kind of staying to myself, kind of doing my own thing. Today actually wasn't a bad day when I woke up. I didn't feel so depressed, but I'm still kind of in that, like I've been feeling super lost. Like, as you know, I have a YouTube channel, and like on my channel, when I originally started it, it was to talk about my real estate business, and that was the purpose of me starting it. But now that I've decided that I don't want to pursue real estate, I'm at a place where it's like I'm kind of lost and trying to figure out where I'm supposed to be going, or like, what I'm supposed to be doing. So,
and that's what you want to focus for today?
Yeah, I kind of want to get some clarity in like regards to maybe how to get myself on track to figure it out. Like I don't expect to like walk over here and be like, oh, I know what I'm supposed to do in my life, but kind of some like actionable tools or steps that I can kind of take to kind of help me figure it out.
Okay. So first, I want to know how the situation is making you feel. So
Anxious.
yeah. So not having the purpose, not knowing your purpose yet or your direction yet, how is that making you feel?
It makes me feel very anxious. It makes me feel um, kind of like I don't know what I'm doing or what I'm supposed to be doing. I feel like I'm kind of just like turning my wheels and nothing is happening because I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. So I'm just doing a lot of different things to say that I'm doing something or to feel like I'm making progress, but I don't really know what I'm making progress on. Like I'm just turning my wheels essentially.
Got it. And what are you anxious about?
Um, I'm anxious about either not being on the right path and not knowing if I'm on the right path. Like I'm anxious about, am I doing the right thing? Like, is this stuff that I'm doing, is it what I'm supposed to be doing? Is it going to amount to something? Am I doing it for no reason? Am I going to be successful at it?
So the
Like,
anxiety is about what if you're on the wrong path?
yeah, what
Okay.
if I'm on the wrong path?
And if you were on the wrong path, what about that brings up fear
I have a fear
or
of
worry?
time. I have a fear of wasting time. I have a fear of, okay, my father passed away last August, and he was only 56 years old. So I feel like I'm like racing, like kind of against like a time clock, and I feel like the longer it's taking me to kind of figure it out or not figure it out, it's kind of like stressing me out. Like I don't I have this worry that I'm going to run out of time and not like figure out my purpose.
Got it.
Sorry.
It's okay. It's so I do want to introduce a process and emotional toolkit to help you get to
Mm-hmm.
the root of any negative emotion, feeling, and problem you want to work through. Having
Okay.
said that, I don't want you to feel restricted by it. So at
Okay.
any time you want to say something outside of it, feel free to do so.
Okay.
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 So what I help people with is what I call emotional strength. And the process I use is called FIST. Think of
Mm-hmm.
fist. Okay.
Okay.
F stands for feeling because we're always thinking, right? Thinking, overthinking. Do you resonate with that?
Yeah, I'm always overthinking.
Got it. Got it. So here is a mantra to help you center yourself. I want you to
Okay.
repeat this mantra right now, just internally. And the mantra goes, problems bring up feelings in us that existed before the problem ever happened. I'm going to
Okay.
say, because it's a hefty one, I'm going to say it one more time.
Yeah.
Problems bring up feelings in us that existed before the problem ever happened. Okay. So the
Got it.
thinking mind, the one that's the overthinking, the over analytical mind will say, it is a certain problem causing you a negative emotion and negative feeling. So if you
Mhm.
fix the problem, you will fix the feeling.
Mhm.
But the issue is, the reality is, the feeling preceded the problem. So even if you fix the problem, the core negative issue feeling
Mhm.
still exists. Okay.
Mhm.
Now these core negative feelings are going to say something negative about you, but you want to remind yourself that they're just weeds. They're not
Okay.
true about who you really are.
Okay.
Okay. You just need to identify them, pull them out so they don't control you subconsciously on how you feel and think. Got it? Got it. So, for
Mhm.
example, what you said earlier is like, I just need to find my purpose. I need to find my purpose. And that's the problem. If I fix the problem, I will no longer feel anxiety.
Mhm.
Anxiety is still a surface feeling. It's a coping mechanism. It's how we run away from feeling some type of negative pain. So that you want to go even underneath that. And that's what's underlying. So even if you find something, it's that underlying feeling is still there. So now we move, before I move on, feeling is very important. Okay. I want you to tell yourself this mantra: feeling is healing.
Okay.
Okay. Because if we commit to the act of feeling, it creates a foundation for all other levels of healing and awareness to be possible. If we're only in our headspace, only thinking, thought is important. Thoughts and action are the ship that help us get to our destination, but the captain is feeling. Okay. If we're only thinking, we're going to go in a downward spiral, and we're going to go in the very opposite direction of where we want to go to. Okay. And you can tell yourself feeling is healing because it connects you to love. So even if you feel your pain, it will begin the healing process because you're giving the emotional wound the medicine of love to heal. But so this is not the end all be all. This just creates a foundation for us to proceed. Okay. Second part is I in the FIST process is to identify these core negative feelings, these weeds. All right. The process that we're going to use is PEWF. Think of the poof process. Okay. So P stands for problem, E stands for emotion. And so we already, so that's what I want to focus on right now. But before we go there, I'd like to know, out of the three main negative emotions, which ones do you experience? Okay. And there's also subcategories to each negative emotion. So the first one is anxiety, worry, or fear. The second one is anger or frustration. Anger does not have to be violent. It's just a feeling.
Definitely anger.
And the third one is depression, suppression, or sadness. It's suppressing and numbing bodily and how you feel. Okay.
Okay.
So out of these three, which ones do you experience?
Definitely anxious. Definitely angry. Definitely depressed.
Got it. All right. So tell me a problem that brings up strong feelings of anxiety, worry, or fear into you.
Not knowing what I'm supposed to be doing with my life. Like that's a very big thing with me right now. Like it's all I think about from the moment I wake up in the morning to when I go to bed. I don't like my job, so I'm trying to figure out, how to get out of there. But me trying to figure out how I'm going to get out of there is me worrying about starting a business, but I can't start a business because I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. And then it's like a whole cycle of going around in that same circle every day.
Got it. Right now, and then right now, I just want to touch upon each negative emotion, see what situation or problem brings up each emotion. Then we're going to go underneath it all. Okay. And the second one is anger and frustration. So tell me a problem or situation that brings up strong feelings of anger or frustration.
Not being able to live my life how I want to live it, like not being able to have my freedom, not being able to feeling like I have to do things because that's what I'm supposed to be doing. Like I have to go to my job because I have to make money. I have to take care of my daughter. I have to do these things, but these things aren't fulfilling to me. So it's just like I'm doing it because I have to do it, and I don't want to keep living like that. Like I don't want to do stuff that doesn't make me happy just because I have to do it. Just because I want to make money in a way that brings me freedom. Like I don't want to be so bogged down to my job and to my house and like all of that.
Got it. So what brings up anger is having no choice and having no freedom of choice.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. And what situation or problem brings up strong feelings of depression, suppression, or sadness?
Being lost, feeling like I said, just pretty much just being like, I feel like I'm wandering. Like, I feel like I'm just wandering about life. I'm kind of like, every day it's like, okay, let's see if we could do this today. And then it's like feeling overwhelmed by trying to do everything. So then I just don't want to do anything.
Got it. Got it. Yeah, that's a common feeling. Just wanting to just like give up, us hopeless, that kind of thing.
Yeah, like I just want to go to sleep. Like I don't. It's like I'm trying to do it, and I feel like I'm trying to do it the right way, quote unquote. But then when nothing is happening, it's like, what the hell am I doing all of this for? Like, for what? I can just go to bed.
Got it. Got it. Got it. All right. So we want to identify these core negative feelings. Yes, they're weeds. They're
Mhm.
not true about who you really are. But to get to that place, we need to do the W in the proof process,
Mhm.
PWF. W stands for worst fear, worst case scenario. So what you want to take the original problem or situation, stretch it all the way to your worst fear, worst case scenario, and tell me, what
Mhm.
does that look like? So for example, you said the first one, anxiety, was, what if I'm on the wrong path?
Mhm.
Is that your worst fear, worst case? I mean, what is your worst fear, worst case scenario if you were to stretch it?
But I would just. I feel like if I died tomorrow, I wouldn't be happy about how I lived my life. Like I wouldn't feel like I did anything um like I was supposed to do, or I didn't do anything like useful. I wouldn't feel like my life was fulfilled. I would just feel like I went to work and I died and that's it. Like that's it.
Got it, got it. So worst fear is to die having lived an unfulfilled life.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I mean, we can keep going along this path because I want to identify those core negative feelings. I was thinking about going there, but let's identify all your worst fears, worst case scenarios.
Mhm.
Okay. So for the feelings of anger, no choice, no freedom of choice. What is
Mhm.
your worst case scenario? Speaking of from the feeling of the anger.
Continuing how I'm going now with just like staying at a job that I don't like living my life on everybody else's terms as far as like what I'm supposed to be doing. Like you're supposed to have a job. You're to, you have to do this because you have to be a mom and you have to take care of your daughter and you have to do the typical things that everybody else is doing. And that's not how I want to live my life. Like, I don't want to be broke by any means at all, but I also don't, I also want to just learn how to make money in a way that allows me to be free and to do something that I like
Got it.
doing.
Got it. What do you if that was we're just playing a worst case scenario, okay?
Mm-hmm.
If that was the case, if you had to live a life of no freedom of choice, and you had to everything you did was something you had to do, even though you didn't like
Mm-hmm.
it, what do you
Mm-hmm.
fear would happen because of that?
I would just live a miserable life. I would just keep on this path of just being miserable, like just running on like this hamster wheel of doing like the same thing over and over again until I retire, and then that's
Got
it.
it.
Like,
Got it. Almost like a purposeless life.
yeah, like very, like,
Got
just
it.
like I was here, I was a body, and now I'm gone. Like I didn't do anything in this life, and that's it.
Got it. Got it. Got it. So now we're ready to identify these core negative feelings, which is the
Mm-hmm.
F in the proof process. F
Mm-hmm.
stands for feeling about the self. You
Mm-hmm.
want to imagine if your worst fear came true,
Mm-hmm.
how would it make you feel about who you are? Now, there are three common feelings that come up. I call them F, W, P. F stands
Mm-hmm.
for, these are just general guidelines, by the way. You want
Mm-hmm.
to be specific. F stands for failure or failing.
That's exactly what I heard. As soon as while you were saying that, failure was what was coming in my mind.
Got
I
it,
would
got it.
just feel like a failure.
So failure or failing others, letting others down. We can come back to this because right now I just want to identify the kind of describe the core feelings, and then we'll identify them.
Mm-hmm.
The second one is W. W stands for worthless, but this comes in many different forms. Worthless
Mm-hmm.
as if I don't matter. I don't exist. I'm abandoned. I'm alone. I'm unwanted. I'm disrespected. I'm an outcast. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
The third one is P, which stands for powerless.
Mm-hmm.
Powerlessness comes in two different forms, but they're highly, highly related. The first one is when you feel immensely responsible for others. When you do so, you're powerless as a fixer. And the thing is, to understand about responsibility for others, we cannot use our personal key to drive the vehicle of life for another. It's impossible. So we're trying to be in control of something that is out of our control, making us feel powerless.
Mm-hmm.
Also, the second form is needing to be in control. I've heard clients say, like, when I'm not in control, I freak out. So, but then that also creates a feeling of powerlessness because, however you want to call it, only the creator is in control, God, love, or universe. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So that trying to be in control is separating from the real entity that is in control, rendering us feeling powerless. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So let's come back to the original worst fear, worst case scenarios. So if you were to die living an unfulfilled life,
Mm-hmm.
how would that make you feel? The F, W, P, and Y: failure, worthless, and powerless.
I would feel definitely like a failure. That's one of my main things. Um, and I would definitely say powerless because I do want to be in control of how my life is going, and I don't feel like I'm in control at all. So those two together are like my main, I think, like issues.
Can you tell me, how do you like to be in control?
I like things done the way that I want them to be done, and I feel like if I start to do something or if I'm working on something, I have an idea in my mind of how it should go, and when it's not going that way, it it makes me feel like what the hell, like why isn't it working?
Can you give me an example?
Um like with starting a business, for instance, like I've tried to start like three different businesses, right? Well, not really. I can okay. I'd like to try different things because I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. So I'm in a stage where I am trying different things. So for instance, with real estate, which was the latest thing that I'm doing, everything that like I'm trying, for instance, I'm supposed to be selling a house right now. And every time I turn around, something is going wrong with the process of selling this house. And it's pissing me off to the point where I just don't even want to be bothered with it anymore. Like, I don't want to do real estate. I don't, like, I'm supposed to call the client tonight and I just don't even feel like calling her. I don't feel like being bothered with the situation. Like, I feel like I've done everything that I was supposed to do and nothing is falling into place with it. It's like every time I turn around, we're hitting a roadblock and it's aggravating. And I just don't feel like being bothered. Like I'm at a point where it's just like, forget this. I'm not doing this shit anymore.
Got it. I'm kind of curious. This is another like an example. I see it's probably related to what you've discussed before, but I think it's
Mm-hmm.
something that's interesting. So if this real estate, selling this house, the one that have to speak with the client tonight,
Mm-hmm.
stretch that to your worst case scenario, worst fear, what would that
Mm-hmm.
look like?
Me not selling this house and me having wasted almost 6 months of my life trying to sell this fucking house and it's not selling, and me feeling like a failure because this was my first house. This was my first listing and this was my first house to sell, and feeling like after I've done everything that I was supposed to do, or like, trying to go above and beyond and it's still not working out, that makes me feel like I failed at it. Even though I've done what I needed to do, I didn't sell the house, so I failed.
Got it. Got it. So let's bring up feelings, failure. I do want you to subconsciously, gently remind yourself as we uncover these core negative feelings, they're weeds.
Mm-hmm.
What the process we're going to do initially is when you identify these core negative feelings, yes, they're going to say something negative about you, but you're cutting the head off the snake
Okay.
because it's saying you're a failure, you're a failure, you're a failure. But if you sell the house, you're not a failure. But it sets you up through this delusion, because it's like you can avoid feeling the failure if you fix the problem, but your worth, your self-worth doesn't have a condition. Okay. So when you identify these core negative feelings, as bad as it sounds, you're cutting the head off the snake. It can no longer control. It begins to lose power over how it controls you and manipulates you with this illusion that fixing the problem will fix the feeling. Okay.
And I also feel like a failure to other people. Like people, for instance, like I talk about my real estate business on like my social media and like all of that stuff. So to see other people, to feel like other people are seeing me fail or like not like, and that's another thing, because it's like I want to try different things to find what I like, but that also makes me anxious, because then it's like people are like, well, why you can't just stick with something, or why every time you turn around you're doing something new, you know? Like I feel like
are you saying you're letting them down when you jump?
It's not that I'm letting them down, it's just that I feel judged. Like I feel like people are looking at me like, well, why the hell this girl can't get nothing right? Like she tried 3 different businesses and none of them work. Got that. That's how I feel.
Got it. So the feeling of being judged, it from the sound of it, it brings up a feeling of because if everybody, worst case scenario is that everybody judges you to the point that they look down upon you. And if they were to look down upon you, they wouldn't want to be in your life, making you feel worthless, or in like an outcast. It's not true about who you really are. The feeling of being judged is like worst case scenario, everybody judges you to the point that they look down upon you, and thereby they probably wouldn't want to be in your life. And that would bring up, I want you to explore this feeling of worthlessness, being outcast. The feeling's not true, because the the worthless, is a very hard feeling to connect with, because it tends to be the more painful one. Okay. Like if you fail, you don't have any self-worth. You don't have an existence.
Yeah.
So that, do you resonate with that?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't want to feel like I definitely feel like this whole entrepreneurship journey is already lonely as is. Like trying to figure yourself out and trying to figure out what you're supposed to be doing. I feel like a lot of people around me don't necessarily understand what I'm trying to do, and I don't really understand what I'm trying to do. So it's all like frustrating. But I feel like if I was successful at something, then everything that I'm going through would be worth it, you know? But yeah.
I mean, side note, this struggle you're going, like you want to reach that success point or whatever it is meant to
I
be
just want to
for
feel
you.
comfortable. I just want to feel comfortable. Like I want to feel like, yeah, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. Like whatever that light bulb is for people, like if you know that you wanted to be a doctor since 3, you're happy about doing shit to be a doctor. I'm not happy about doing anything. I just do it.
I want you to, I just want to take a side note, is that something I ask people to do, especially with issues with like letting go or surrender and control. I call it FAST, the FAST method, kind of like a juice fast, but it's like a meditation fast. F stands for feeling, as we already said. A is accepting that everything is a part of the plan of the creator, however you want to call it, God, love, or universe. Which one do you resonate with?
God, universe.
Okay.
Something between there.
Okay. So
somebody up there.
okay. I'll say creator. That's the one. So accept that everything is a part of the plan of God, universe, or the creator. So like the struggle you're going through, as bad as it is how it is going to catapult you if you go through it. You cannot bypass it. If you bypass it, you can't get to that success point. If you the struggle is going to be your opportunity. Okay. But that's just a side note. So we identified we see how all 3 core feelings, they kind of relate in different scenarios. So like failure, feeling judged, which brings up feeling of, is it like if you're judged is the worst fear, worst case scenario is like you would be an outcast?
Yeah. Like I already feel like an outcast. Like I already feel like people don't get me. I feel very misunderstood just in general. Um, I'm very closed off to people, so I don't feel like people have an idea of who I am. So it's kind of difficult as is because I already feel like I try to distance. Like I'm social, but I'm very to myself at the same time. Like if you speak to me, I'll speak back, but I'm not good at like forming bonds with people. Like I'm not good at like getting too close to people or letting people get too close to me.
Got it. Got it. All right. So it's after we identify these core negative feelings, we're ready to go into the S in the FIST process. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So S stands for separation, separating from what doesn't belong to you. Now, before we explain what this means, there's a question I want to ask you.
Mm-hmm.
If somebody around you is feeling anxious, angry, sad, or depressed, and they don't even say that they are, like they don't say that they're angry, they don't say that they're anxious, but if they are you able to feel it, pick up on it, or sense it?
I can sense it. I know when people are sad. I know when they're like my best friend is depressed right now, and I know that she was depressed before she even told me that she was.
Got it. Got it. So the way you answer, everybody's born with some level of sensitivity, allowing them to feel what other people feel. But the way you answer
Mm-hmm.
that question puts you in the category of the 1 out of 5, which of highly sensitive
Mm-hmm.
people. This is a gift and this is ability. Okay. But it has to be used consciously and correctly. Another
Mm-hmm.
question, a way to understand this ability and gift is that when you pull up your worst fears and your core negative feelings, I want you to ask yourself, who else in my life feels this way? And another question to ask is, whose movie am I in? Now, what does this mean? This means that with the gift of high sensitivity and high empathy, we can subconsciously zap ourselves into somebody else's movie, thinking it's our own. And in that scenario, it is very, very painful, very confusing, and even traumatic. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Because no matter what you do, nothing changes because it's not
Mm-hmm.
your movie. It's trying to
Mm-hmm.
fix and to defeat this hologram,
Mm-hmm.
and our hands go right through it every single time. So there are many people in which we can find ourselves in the movies of, but we'll begin with the first people we ever knew, and that'll be your
Mm-hmm.
parents. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
The connections that we're going to make won't be obvious until we complete the process, and they won't be obvious in the beginning. So just want you to be a little patient.
Okay.
Okay. So we're going to apply the same PEWF proof process to each one of your parents. Well, let's begin with the parent that is more emotionally expressive.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Neither one of them, honestly.
so they both suppress their feelings.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Well, I would say my father more, um, but but definitely both.
Okay. Let's
Definitely both.
begin. Let's begin with the father. So with your father, which which emotions he's experienced out of anxiety, anger, and depression?
Um, he was very. I think he was probably a combination of like all three. Honestly, my father was very like um he's very to himself, and like for instance when he passed away he didn't want a funeral because he thought nobody would show up,
Wow.
so we never had a funeral for him.
So what what sticks out of your mind is that what problem or situation brings up strong feelings of anxiety or anger?
I'm more so angry.
No, no, no. A
Uh,
hit for your father. What problem or situation brought up strong feelings of anxiety or anger?
I think I guess his relationship with like us, like as his children, like it wasn't a good relationship. And I don't think he ever knew how to fix it. So he kind of just avoided it for the most part. So I don't know if he ever,
Oh, I'm
well,
sorry. I'm sorry.
before,
Okay. Go, keep going. Keep going.
before he passed away, he, apologized about how he, did things wrong and he felt bad, in regards to that. Um, but I don't really, we didn't talk. We didn't talk for like 3 years before I seen him, before he passed away. So I don't really know what he felt. I just know that that's kind of what he expressed, like regret, I guess, or like, I
What
don't know.
prevented him from being present?
I think that he just didn't know how to. I think like um after him and my mom like kind of broke up, he was angry at her for their, situation, even though it was his fault that they broke up because he went and had another baby, but whatever. Um, so I think he was just like angry at my mom for, I guess, leaving or not staying or whatever. And then that kind of trickled down to us because
Angry at your
he
mom for
wasn't
not staying?
like with him. Like I guess he figured that even though he did something wrong, that maybe they would stay together or maybe they would try to work it
Okay,
out.
okay.
And my mother wasn't going to do that, so she wound up leaving him. Um, so yeah,
Okay,
so
okay.
I think he was just more so. Um, I think he took that out on us because there wasn't any reason honestly for him necessarily not to be present. I live in one, we live in the same state. We just live in two different boroughs. It's not like he was far away where he couldn't be present. He just
Got it, got it.
wasn't.
And you said he experienced anxiety, worry, and fear?
I think his thing was more.
Like
My father
what's
apparently was a drinker that
okay.
I learned as I got older. Like I didn't know that about him, but I learned that he was basically alcoholic. So
What problem or situation would bring up strong feelings of anxiety, worry, or fear?
I don't know. I
Okay.
don't. I have no idea.
And
I don't. I
the
wasn't.
interesting you said that he didn't want a funeral because he thought nobody would show up.
Yeah, and I feel like he just felt like maybe he was like a bad person, or maybe people didn't care about him, or people didn't love him, so
Yeah.
he didn't want
So
that.
that's it like relates to the worthless feeling. People don't care about me. Okay. Okay. How about with your mother? What emotions does she experience out of anxiety, anger, or depression?
Um, I think she was also kind of like angry about how things turned out. As far as her, you know, having to go from being married to then being a single parent of two children, with a man who wasn't present and wasn't really like helping her, I guess, as he should have. Um, she expressed like a lot of anger in regards to like that, like the stress of doing it on her own. Um, I feel like I don't she probably was depressed or at like certain points. Um Anxious. I'm not really sure if she was necessarily anxious, but I definitely feel like she was angry and probably depressed because there were probably, times where she was obviously overwhelmed with having to be a single mother and having to work and, trying to figure, a lot of things out.
So what brought up
So
anger was just having to do it on her own.
yeah,
Okay.
like having to always be the person to who's going to pick up the kids from school, who's going to, cook, who's going to do this, because it was just her doing it by herself when
Got it.
technically she shouldn't have been.
Got it. And what if you stretch this to her worst fear, worst case scenario? What would that look like?
Um, I'm not really sure. I would feel like that would, for her, be the worst thing, to know that she is doing it by herself. But she did it, so I'm not really sure what
Is it was it? I just want to explore this. What could it be? Feelings of like, am I doing it right? Or like a life of like sacrifice and obligation.
Definitely sacrifice.
I have to do it.
Yeah,
There's no choice.
definitely no choice. Like she didn't have a choice. Like, and I think that she was angry about my father as far as him having a choice, and she didn't have a choice.
Got it. Would it bring up feelings of failure in her? Like, is she doing it right?
I think she's always worried about it, but luckily,
She worried about what again?
I feel like she's always worried if she did good with us. Like, I feel like she's always worried if all of her sacrifices and like all the stuff that she did was worth it. Like, if we were okay. But we've turned out fine. We've turned out fine in the aspect of, we both have jobs, we're both, good people. Nobody's like, a serial killer or anything like that.
I just want to connect with her fears, even though they're not
I definitely
logical.
I definitely feel like she worried if she was like a good mom. I definitely do feel like she's worried about that.
Good. Okay. We're ready to do just the initial layer. This is the first half of separation. There's an undercurrent underneath that. But I think we reached a certain level. So when we're ready to do an exercise, so I want you to place any kind of handheld object onto your lap where you can feel its weight, preferably not a electronic device.
Like a water bottle or something?
That's fine.
Okay.
All right. Okay. So before we begin, remember about the gift and the ability of high sensitivity, right?
Yeah.
I call them emotional antennas,
Mm-hmm.
right? So this seems a little silly, but you can just put this up, your emotional antennas, just for a few seconds. All right, you can place them down. All right. So even though you put them down, they're always there.
Mm-hmm.
Your emotional antennas allow you to feel what other people feel, and you were born with them.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And now we're ready to do the exercise. I want the emotional antennas exercise. I want you to close your eyes for a moment.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I want you to connect with your body, because your true emotional antenna is your body. This is how you feel what other people feel. This is where you internalize them and where you store them.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I want you to connect with the feelings of anger, anxiety, depression, the worst fears, the core negative feelings, failure, being judged, being an outcast. Connect with those feelings and emotions in your body, and then transfer all of that onto that weight and object on your lap. Transfer every last drop of it. Now I want you to reframe what these negative emotions and feelings are. Reframe them as the emotional signals you picked up through your emotional antennas from your parents since you were a child. The feeling of, what if I'm judged? And if I'm judged, then I'll be an outcast. The life in the entrepreneur life feels lonely. And as you said with your father, He didn't want a funeral because he didn't think anybody would want to show up or cared about him. Okay. Also, with your mother, that living a life of no choice. She had to raise, do all this all on her own. She couldn't do what she really wanted because she didn't have any help. She had no choice. And when you said initially, I'm living a life, your worst fear is to live a life with no choice, no freedom of choice. And even like failure, that was a thing that came up. And with your mother, she worried constantly, was she a good mom? There's something else I want to do, but does that resonate with you? Any questions, thoughts, or feelings?
No, my life pretty much the same thing.
Okay,
I worry about the same thing.
got it, got it. So, what's the initial step to separate from what doesn't belong to you, especially when it seems so much a part of your being? It's like it's hard to let go of something that when you don't know another world or another self. So, um, I want you to say SAM. Are you okay with playful cussing?
Yeah.
Okay. So SAM stands for shit ain't mine.
Okay.
Okay. So what does that mean? So I want you to imagine a healthy line of separation separating your personal space and the personal space of your parents. You're not saying this to your parents, you're saying this to yourself. Because yes, you are highly sensitive, but you don't want to misuse and subconsciously misuse your gift to the point that you internalize their feelings, put it in your personal space because that water bottle, that object in your personal space becomes your emotional kryptonite. It'll break you down physically, emotionally, mentally, and make your life into a living nightmare. When you say SAM and you separate from this, that these feelings that do not belong to you, I want you to remind yourself of this mantra. And just, I'm not an emotional sponge, but a source of light. If you misuse your gift as an emotional sponge, that's your emotional kryptonite. If you separate from it, then you can shine your light and actually begin to help others in a more powerful and healthy way. Okay. So whenever you're ready, I want you to place that object across the healthy line of separation, separating your personal space and the personal space of your parents. And I want you to verbally say out loud, SAM, shit ain't mine. And as you put it across the line of separation, I want you to feel those negative emotions, those core negative feelings, failure, being judged, being outcast. Feel it separating from your body. Okay, as you put it across. So whenever you're ready, you can.
Shit ain't mine.
And allow that to just really settle and to sink in, and to remind yourself as a constant reminder when you catch yourself in the movie of your father, feeling like if they judge me, if other people judge me, I'll be an outcast. This living a lonely life, because he lived a lonely life, right? He wasn't even
Yeah.
involved in his kid's life. He lived a lonely life. So when you catch yourself in that, you are living in your father's movie and it's not yours. Visualize a stop sign right in front of you. Instead of the word stop, you see SAM, shit ain't mine. When you feel like, what if I living a life of no choice? You're in your mother's movie, thinking it's your own. Shit ain't SAM again. And just use your gift correctly and consciously. You remove yourself from the movie and you're just a spectator, right? When we go to the movie theaters, no matter how scary or dramatic the movie is, we're never that scared because we know it's just a movie. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Do you have any questions um, before we? I can move on. There's a second half of S separation, which is very, very powerful.
Mm-hmm.
If you have the time, I can proceed, and then maybe we just separate in two different recordings. This is going faster uh, normal. So I don't know how you feel.
I'm fine with that.
Okay. Any questions or thoughts or feelings about what we discussed thus far? Because I don't want to be so quick. When we move so quickly, this is about
Hmm.
application, and
Yeah,
application is something that happens on a daily basis, on a moment to moment basis. So I don't want you just like, well, okay, let's move on to the next. I want you to process it and really make it a part of your being. So any question, thoughts, or feelings thus far?
you just don't realize how much stuff that you pick up like over time that you don't really. I guess you just subconsciously, pick it up as far as like how my father is, as far as staying to himself, and then like I'm the same way. Like me and him had a very like we always went at each other, but I feel like there's a lot of things about him that I also do, which is probably why we butt heads so much. Um, but it's like you think you're okay with something, or you think something didn't really affect you, but then you get older and you realize how it affects other things in your life.
It is the beginning of change. It feels sad, but it's the beginning of change. It opens that door. I just share a little quick story is that, I have a baby boy, he's 5 months old, 10 days before he was born. And he was born in the Czech Republic because that's where my wife has healthcare, free healthcare due to her citizenship there.
Uh-huh.
And until he was 2 months old, I had terrible insomnia. I'd sleep for only 3 or 4 hours a night. And I had to wake up to change a diaper or to go to the restroom. And immediately when I was waking up, or I immediately feared I wouldn't be able to go back to sleep. And that was almost always the case. And it happened for 2 months straight while I was there. Now, and my worst fear was if this keeps on happening, I'm gonna die. Okay.
Mhm.
And so I come back home. My parents pick me up at the airport at the very same night. We all have dinner together and we're sharing stories how me and my wife raised our newborn and how my parents raised me as a newborn.
Mhm.
And I found out for the first time in my life that my mother never took care of me at night because she was scared if I were to wake her up, she wouldn't be able to go back to sleep. And she's extremely, extremely, and obsessively fearful of death, but she fixates on health and safety to avoid that.
Uh-huh.
And so, I mean, our house, she, like her house, it's in a nice neighborhood, but the windows are all barred up. She has an alarm system, a surveillance system. She has a door on her bedroom door, door lock, chain lock, and she puts a chair against the door handle. So she's
Wow.
very fearful, and she's still to this day.
Mhm.
Um, and so what was amazing was I felt and internalized her pain and trauma as a newborn, and then repeated the same exact trauma 39 years later when I had my own newborn.
Yeah.
So it just like I was like, oh, I did the same exact thing. And it was so powerful. You would think like a newborn wouldn't feel that, wouldn't be able to
Yeah.
process that 39 years later. And still like it's a biological imprint and it was set off by a biological alarm clock.
Yeah. Which
Okay.
is scary.
Yeah. So I
And
want,
it's crazy because my mom had postpartum depression, and I wasn't with her for like the first like 5 months of my life. I stayed with my grandmother. So that's always been I guess that's also been a thing for me as far as like abandonment, because I kind of dealt with that with her. And then my father left. So that's now another parent.
I,
So I think that's another thing that like keeps me from getting too close to people or letting them get too close to me, because they're just going to leave anyway.
I'm curious with your mother and for that 5 months of postpartum depression, what was the thing that was making her feel so unwell, so depressed, or
I have no idea. We've never really like talked about it. I don't know. Like we've never really like I know it existed. Like
so she was
she
taking care of you, but without the help of your father at that time.
No, they were still together at that time. They didn't break up until I was 7, so they were still together at that time. But I remember, like, she just said that, like, she would just bring me to my like, at the time they lived in my grandmother's house and they lived in the basement, and my grandmother lived upstairs, and she would just bring me to my grandmother, and I would just stay with my grandmother. So that's who I was like with for the majority of those months. And like, then she went back to work eventually, and I've always stayed with my grandmother. Like, me and my mom were never close, ever. We used to butt heads a lot when I was a teenager. We were never close. I never felt like, it's like, I know she's my mom, so I have to like love her because she's my mother, but I never felt like close to her. And we only got closer once I got pregnant with my daughter. Like, once I became a mother, that's when we used to, like, that's when we started talking and like being quote unquote friends or whatever. But up
Okay.
until then, I
So
don't
you, okay. So
never
I'm just
felt close
curious,
to her.
you're not quite sure why it was such a difficult time for her during that time.
Yeah, I don't know if she was like maybe just overwhelmed. Like, I guess I was her first child. She was 23 when she had me. Um, she was working, so I'm not really sure like what her feeling was. Like, I've never asked her, honestly. I've never asked
Got
her
it.
what she was feeling at that time.
Got it.
But
Got it.
I know it happened because she was like kind of worried about it with me when I had my daughter. So she was kind of worried about if it would be something that I would kind of go through. So she told me about it, but I never knew like why.
Maybe something you can ask, but then we'll we'll come back to that.
Yeah.
So now I want to, since we identified core negative feelings and we see the correlation with your parents, now it's about intergenerational healing. It's about uncovering some past family trauma. Why did your father feel that way? Why does your mother feel that way or felt that way? Where does this feeling really, really come from? Okay. It could be
Mhm.
something from their upbringing, something with their own parents. And I'll give you an example. So my mother has an immense fear of death. She fixates on
Mhm.
health and safety to avoid that. Where does that fear of death come from? For one, there's two things. She was born into a world of death, violence, and murder because she grew up in World War II in communist China. Okay,
Mhm.
and that I don't want to go into too many depth
Mhm.
about that, but there was just a lot. Especially my grandma. Grandma saw her family members lined up by communists, and she was hiding in the barn just when she was a teenager. She saw
Mhm.
her family members killed execution style. So that's the world that my mother was born to. So I understand a part of it. Where's this immense fear of death? But
Mhm.
there's another layer to that. So my grandmother, when she was 5 years old, see, her father was a high-ranking general in it's like the KMT party, the other party fleeing to Taiwan,
Mhm.
and he wanted he divorced my grandma's mother because he wanted somebody prettier and better educated. So my grandma's mother was, severed from the family, had to live a life of poverty, and was severed
Mhm.
from her firstborn, which was my grandmother.
Mhm.
So what I'm saying, this fear of death is really about feeling like an outcast, like you don't exist. So that's the first
Mhm.
incident. Second thing is my my grandma's father remarried, and that stepmother did not want my grandmother a part of the family because it would illegitimize her existence. She doesn't want to be the stepmother. She doesn't want to be the second wife. She's the only one.
Mhm. Mhm.
So my grandma was raised by her grandparents. But this is World War II time, during
Mhm.
death, violence, and murder. So she is fleeing for her life. As a teenager, she would run so much that she had to rest on the hilltops because her feet were all swollen. And it
Mhm.
got so bad that her grandfather fled her to safety to her father's new home with the stepmother. And when he opened the door, his first reaction was disappointment because he know that his second wife will be angry. So with her life on the line, her father did not protect her.
Mhm.
And that is the second major incident of being outcasted, abandoned. She's
Mhm.
93 years old right now. And for the longest time, for all the time that I've known her, during family lunches and dinners, she sits with her body facing outwardly because
Mhm.
subconsciously she feels like she's not part of the family.
Mm.
And my mother, my grandma was raised old school, so traditionally, so she favored boys over girls. And she would always hug my mom's brother, but not
Mhm.
um, my mother. So she also felt like this unwanted. So this is,
Yeah.
but she mainly, she internalized this feeling of being abandoned, being outcasted from her
Mhm.
mother, but she doesn't know this is hers. So she has to create a fear, which is the fear of death, because if you die, you cease to exist. And I internalize the same thing. If I don't sleep well, I will die and I will cease to
Mhm.
exist. Okay.
Mhm.
So that's an example of uncovering past family trauma.
Mhm.
This may happen quickly or maybe take some time. We'll do some digging. Thinking about your father or your mother, is
Mhm.
there any past family trauma to where their feelings are coming from?
Mhm. I feel like I know that my father and his father didn't have like the best relationship. Um, I feel like they butt heads a lot too. I feel like they're kind of like the same person. For instance, like my grandfather basically had another family on my grandmother, right? Um, so I didn't know about these people until my grandfather died. I didn't know about these other uncles that I had. Um, I didn't know about any of this until my grandfather passed away. I didn't meet these people until my grandfather's funeral.
So your
So
grandfather was with your grandmother, and during that whole time, he also had another family at the same time.
yeah, but I don't think it was the whole time. I think it was just a period where he like I guess cheated on my grandmother and had a baby. Um, but he wasn't with the other woman. Like I don't think they weren't ever like married or like anything like that. But the my uncle, I guess that's what he is to me. He's around the same age as my father. So I think it was like kind of like around the same time, where he essentially kind of just, I guess, cheated with my grandmother and he had another woman and got her pregnant and she had my uncle. Um, so, and my father never got along. I don't know if they were a secret to me, but I don't really know if they were a secret to like my grandmother and my father and my aunt. Like, for instance, I only know of my dad and my aunt Renee. Those are the only two people I knew of. Like I thought I had one aunt and that was it. But then when my grandfather passed away, I find out that I had two other uncles. So my grandfather had two children outside of his marriage to my grandmother. He had two additional sons. So I'm thinking that I only had like one aunt, but I had one aunt and two other uncles that I've never met in my life until my grandfather died. Now, I don't know at what age or when my father found out about them, but I know that from what I understand, like once the funeral happened and once everything kind of came to the surface, that my father never liked them or he never I feel like he knew them but he never made like an effort to get to know them or anything like that.
So
And I
your
also
grandfather didn't make it. I just want to clarify
my
because
grandfather basically abandoned them and only
the
stayed with my grandmother and my father
oh,
and his
he had these
daughter
kids,
and
but
abandoned
then
them.
and abandoned them.
Yeah. So I feel like my even though he stayed like with my father's mom and stuff, like my father was a very big mama's boy. He was very close to my grandmother. So I think he always had this anger towards my grandfather for doing that to her, like having these other kids outside of their marriage. So I think they've always clashed
Was he
in
also
that way.
angry for abandoning them, or just angry
I
that
don't
he
know.
cheated?
I think he was more so angry that he did that to my grandmother. I don't think he was angry that he abandoned them, because I feel like he would have wanted him to abandon them, because he would have wanted my grandfather to just be with him and not worry about those other people. So I don't
Did he
really.
feel like his father abandoned his mother by doing that?
I think so. Like, I feel like he definitely resented him. I feel like he was definitely angry with him. From what I understand, they used to argue a lot, like as he was like growing up. I don't think he respected him. Like, I felt like he felt like he did his mother wrong, so he didn't respect him as a man. Like, he didn't respect him as his father. So they always like butt heads and had their relationship, turmoil between them. And
How did your grandfather take all that?
I feel like my grandfather, I feel like he I feel like he felt bad, maybe, but what my grandfather, when my father like left us, basically, like when he abandoned us, my grandfather stepped up. So I feel like my grandfather tried to take the place of my dad in my life. Like, if you ever ask me about them, I would say that my grandfather was my dad. Like, he was the person that was at my recitals, and there he was the person that was there. Like, he was my dad, essentially. So I feel like whatever he, you know essentially fucked up with his own kids, he tried to fix it with us, his grandkids. So he tried to fix it with me.
It's very interesting that he was angry at his father for doing that to his mother, for not it's a form of not being present,
Yeah.
and then he wasn't present with his own.
Yeah. And then he basically, like, he did the same thing that his father did. Like, he cheated on my mother and went and had a whole nother, like, my other brother, my half brother, he's, I think, 2 years younger than my brother. So at that time they were already married, they lived together, like, but my father cheated a lot, according to my mom. But it was just, I guess, having a child is, it's different. Like, there's cheating and there's having a whole baby. So it's like, I guess at that point my mom had kind of like always taken him back for doing these things, but then once the other woman got pregnant and had a kid, that was like her final straw. So I feel like he he decided, like, okay, well, if you don't want to be with me, then, kind of like, essentially, fuck y'all. Like, I'm just gonna go live my life. He moved out. He moved, back to Manhattan, and that's what he did. He lived his life. He was a single man. He lived like that. He wasn't like, I don't. I he. If I needed something, I knew I can call him. Like, my father was very monetary. Call me when you need me. If I need money, I can call him. But he wasn't present. Like, he would show up for major things. Like, he would show up for a birthday or graduation. But like, just to show up to, like, oh, it's, Saturday, let's go out to eat. No. It was like, I'm here because I have to be here for like major things in your life.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I know we can come back to it. I don't want to like harp on it, but there's
Mm-hmm.
something that, like, I read this book called "It Didn't Start with You," and it talks about this intergenerational healing, and
Mm-hmm.
it can reach really far depths. So,
Mm-hmm.
for instance, I'm just wondering that, because this your father has this feeling of like, people don't care about me, and it lives a lonely existence. So I'm
Yeah.
wondering, where does that feeling come from? It seems like partly he felt like his father abandoned his mother by cheating, but also
Yeah.
I'm wondering if those children who were abandoned that he
Mm-hmm.
had with another woman,
Mm-hmm.
could it be coming from there?
Yeah. I don't know. I don't. I don't
Yeah.
know them. I don't know. Like I said, I literally met them at the funeral. I wouldn't have known if I would have seen these two men walking down the street. I would have no idea that they were my uncles. I've never met them in my life.
Did you
Um,
talk to them?
I spoke to them, like, I said hi, and they basically introduced, like, my father's name was Sean. So they was like, oh, this is, Sean's daughter. And I met them, but
So
I
your
would have never
grandfather
known.
never really interacted with them at all.
My grandfather never told me anything about them. I
And and then
literally
they
did not find out about them until my grandfather died.
and then he didn't even interact with them.
I don't know. I don't think he had. I know that they had interactions, but I don't think that they were close at all. I think um I think similar to the way my father was with me, as far as probably being there when it's important. I feel like my grandfather probably had the same relationship with them. I don't but from any time I can remember, my grandfather was like, I was always at his house. Like, I was always there with my grandfather. Like, I would spend weekends over there. Like, I've never seen these people, never heard of them, never a phone call,
I
never
yeah,
anything.
I want
So
to. I'm not saying this is the case, but something just to
mm,
kind of like plant the seed and then kind of contemplate it, ruminate over it, is that man, they were terribly abandoned.
yeah,
They didn't have their father at all, no connection.
yeah.
And so that's, I wonder if you could even be picking up from that. But like I said, I don't want to harp on it too much.
Hmm.
How about with your mother? What do you think her feelings are coming from? Is there any past family trauma? Especially what you said
Um,
about not taking care of you for the first 5 months because of just all the overwhelming emotions.
I'm not sure if well, I know, okay, so my aunt was murdered by her husband when I was born, like a little while after I was born. I don't remember her.
You mean
There's
on your mom's
pictures.
side?
Yeah, my mom's sister. My grandparents had three daughters, and then they wound up adopting two sons, two boys. Um, my mom, it was my aunt Michelle, who she was the one that was murdered, and then it was my second aunt, and then it was my mom, and then after my mom, they just, I guess they was like, okay, we got three girls and they wanted boys, so they wound up adopting two boys. Now, I don't remember her, but there are pictures like with me and her. And my mom always used to say that I really, I liked her. Like, my aunt Michelle never had kids, and she always said like I was her kid, like I was the first girl, and I was like her baby. And like there's pictures of me and her, but I don't have any memories of her. Um, but she was murdered by her husband when I was a baby. Um, I don't know if that had anything to do with it, because by that point I was older. I'm not sure how old I was when she was killed, but I was still a baby. That I remember, but I'm not sure if I was like under
How did
one
that
or
affect the
not.
family?
It was traumatic. She was like, her her husband like strangled her, like, and we found out that he was essentially like a serial killer, and my aunt was like one of the women that he married and killed. And this was just like something that he did. He had wives in different places and he killed them. So it was just very like traumatic for everyone to have to like deal with. um I'm sure that was traumatic for my mom, for her sister, her older sister, to be, killed. And I was, you know, I was alive when she was murdered, so I don't know if that kind of like affected her whole, psyche of, I'm not sure, but I know that that was obviously traumatic for her to lose your sister in such a way. Um, so I know that was definitely something that, she's dealt with. I'm not sure about any other things she's had to like deal
That's a
with.
pretty big one. What you just said.
Yeah.
That's
So
a.
I'm pretty sure that obviously that's life changing for her. So yeah.
How do you think that it does may take a little time? How do you think that connects with the feelings that you were able to identify in her? The feelings of no choice, failure, like, oh,
I feel like
did I do
I
a
feel
good
like
enough job? Maybe
I feel like with
did she actually go ahead, go ahead.
I feel like with her, for instance, my aunt, they were all married. Like my first aunt, she got married. My second aunt, she got married and had her husband and had her kids. And my mom did the same thing. Um, Obviously, one killed one. Her older sister, her and her husband are technically still together. And then it was my mom, who now is, I guess a divorced single mother, still, trying to like find her way as a mom, but she was supposed to be like a mom and a wife, but now she's just a mother and she had to like figure it out how to do it. And I feel like at the time, like, okay, my mom worked for the post office and she had just got the job at the post office like a little bit after I was born. But financially, she depended a lot on my father. But now that they weren't together anymore, it's like her trying to have to like fend for herself while taking care of two children. Um, so I'm sure that was stressful. I'm sure that, because she does say like she she always had to make sure that we were okay. So whatever she had to do to make sure that we were okay, we had to be okay. So that meant like her working a lot and leaving us with my grandmother, or just her not being present. And it's like we've had a conversation about this, and it's funny because like I tell my mom all the time, like I don't remember you raising me. Like I don't. Whenever like for instance, I take my daughter to school every day. I take her to school, I pick her up. I'm the only person that does it, right? I'm not with her father. So I'm the person that has to do it because she lives with me. But when I think about when I was younger, my mom never took me to school. My grandparents either took me or I had to get on the bus. Like it was me taking care of myself. It was never her taking care of me.
Because she was trying to make. She said that she was too busy making
She was
ends
always
meet.
working. She always was working. Like she had a schedule. Like she, for instance, she had to, if she has to be at work at 8 o'clock and she has to travel to Manhattan, she has to be, out of the house at 6:30, in the morning. She can't take me to school at 6:30 in the morning. School doesn't open until 8 o'clock. So I had to get myself up. I had to get my brother up in the morning. Like we had to basically get ourselves up and out the door and, doing what we need to do. And it's just funny because I when I was talking to her, I'm like, my daughter doesn't know that life. Like I wake her up every morning. I drive her to school every day. I pick her up from school every night. Like there's never a time where she has to quote unquote necessarily take care of herself. Um, and it's funny because like my mom is like so overprotective of my daughter now, and I'm like, well, where the fuck was my protection? Because you didn't have that issue with me. Like I remember one time I was thinking about starting to let my daughter take the like having a bus come pick her up to take her to school, and my mom was like so like kind of like nervous about it. But I'm like, you're nervous about this. You didn't give a fuck about that when I was growing up. And it's just like, it's just so,
What did
I
she
don't
say
know.
about that?
She's like, it was a different time then. Like it was different back then. Like she's more worried about it now as far as like my
She's worried
daughter.
about something bad happening to your daughter?
Yeah. Like, yeah, just in general, like you hear, kids getting, kidnapped more and like all this stuff that happens. And it's like, well, back then, like for instance, we went to a babysitter. So in the morning, she would drop us. In the morning, we would take the school bus, and then the school bus would take us to school. And then in the evening, we would go to the babysitter. And then when she finally got home from work, she would pick us up from the babysitter, or my grandparents would come pick us up from the babysitter when they got off of work and got home. So that's kind of how, that went. But now it's like, if I was to say like somebody else, like if I was to even mention somebody else picking up my daughter, it's like, well, why would you let them do that? Or, like, it's just weird. It's weird to me how she is so overprotective now, but she wasn't that way
Maybe
before.
she was so consumed with all these emotions and feelings
Yeah.
that she could not,
Mhm.
something about it, and she could not be present in that way. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like with my mom, my mom and my brother are way closer than me and my mom are. They're way closer. And I don't know if it's because he's the baby or because he's a boy, because mama's boys. Like, but my mom always used to, like, when I was younger, before all that stuff happened with my parents, I was the biggest daddy's girl on earth. Like, you couldn't tell me nothing about him. I remember, him just taking me with him all the time. Like, it used to be me and him. That's it. He would get me in his car. We would drive around. Like, I would meet all his friends. Like, if you've seen my father, you've seen me up until they broke up. And then once they broke up, that was pretty much that. But I was very, very, very close to him. And I did not, even my mom will always say, like, if both of them came home from work at the same time, I'm going to him, never to her. Like, I didn't pay her no mind. But my brother is 5 years younger than me. So when she had my brother, I don't know if that was now, like, I guess her person to be close to her, because I didn't pay her no mind. So they, even now to this day, I still feel like they're way closer than I am, like, way closer. And
okay,
I feel like we're close by default now, but their relationship is definitely different than me and her relationship.
got it. All right. I still, it's really important to come back to what you initially talked about, and then I
Mm-hmm.
want you to feel this because I want to make that connection so you can make that full release from these
Mm-hmm.
feelings. Because you said initially is this no choice or failure that consumed
Yeah,
you a lot, and also judgment.
that consumes me now because I don't have a choice for my daughter. Like, I have to be a mom. Like, the same way that my mom felt like she had to be a mom. Like, I don't. I have to go to work because I have to take care of her. Right. I have to do these things because she's here, and her father is around. It's not like he's not around, but I'm her primary parent. So if I don't do it, it's not going to get done. And that's like, I always, like, I don't want to end up like my mom. Like, I don't want to end up, like, I feel like my mom, for instance, like, my mom had cancer, right? She wound up beating it, but she has like all these health problems. Like, she has MS and like all these things. So all her life, all she does is work, 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 right? And then she gets sick, and then she's, battling cancer, and she's still working, during that time. And then I feel like now it's like, okay, she she did what she had to do, to take care of us, and luckily we turned out fine, and we both, are good people, and we have good jobs, and blah 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 blah. But I also feel like she didn't really live any type of life. Like, she just did what she had to do. And I don't want to live like that. Like, I don't want to end up like that. I don't want
What's
to.
the emotion that's coming up? What is it? What is it saying? And what is it about?
I just feel like, for instance, I have a daughter. I don't want to have another kid because I don't know if I can even deal with another child. I don't know if I can handle having another kid. It's like parts of me want to have another kid because I don't want her to be an only child. I don't want when I die for her to be alone. and that's very important to me. Like now that my father died, if having two parents that like have real illnesses, like terminal illnesses, that my mom could have died from cancer. Luckily she didn't, but she could have. And then my father, he died. And to me, it's like if both of them left, at least I have my brother. And if something happens to me, like my daughter won't have anybody. But I also feel like I don't I want to live my life in a way to show her that she can live a life that she wants to live, like not a life out of like obligation. Like I want her to be able to see me like, oh, you know, mom, like I want her to be able to know that she can live a good life, live a life that she wants, live a life of like happiness, not of like necessity, not of like survival. Like I feel like I'm surviving. I don't want to survive. I want to live. And I feel like that's all my mom did was survive. Like she just survived. She paid the bills. She got through it. She did all of that stuff. And then luckily she was able to, you know, beat cancer, and now she can do something, you know, else with her life. But God forbid she didn't beat it, she wouldn't have lived no type of life. She would have just lived a life of like nothing, of just like being a postal worker. Like it's not, to me it's not bad, but I just feel like that's not the life that I want to live, and that's what scares me. Like I
I'm
don't want to.
wondering if she uses this as a coping mechanism, working, kind of like work, work, work. And then like there's no direction, there's no meaning, but it's just as long as I'm working and being busy, then it's a coping mechanism because she doesn't have to deal with
But
whatever
now
underlying feelings.
I also, well, she has, now she's retired, right? So like for the last, my mom probably hasn't worked in, I would say, like 3 years. Like the last time she got sick, she just kind of like never went back to work. And then she like officially retired last year. So like now she doesn't work at all. But now all she does is shop. So she just spends money, and she's a freaking hoarder. And like that's all she does now. And then like my brother just had a baby, so I have a nephew. He's 6 months. So like she helps, you know, with him, you know, as far as like taking care of him sometimes. Like she'll help with him. But I just know that like she did everything that she was supposed to do, you know, like she was a good mom. She took care of us. She made sure we had the things that we liked in life, and she made sure that we traveled and we did certain things. Like she was a good mom. But I also feel like she didn't probably get to live a life that she wanted to live. And I don't want that for me. Like I don't want that for me. I love my daughter, but I don't want me being a mom to consume my entire life, because I'm still Tia. I'm a mother, but I'm still me. And I don't want me being a mom to stop my life. And that's what I felt like it's done for like my daughter's 10. Like for the last 10 years, my life has taken a course of just figuring shit out to survive, to be a mom. But I don't want to keep going like that. I don't want that. Like I'm at a point where it's like, okay, you're here. You worked. I used to work 2 jobs, 7 days a week, you know, working a full-time job Monday through Friday. And then on the weekend, I'm working basically 30 hours on a part-time job so that I can have a roof over me and my daughter's head, and all of that stuff. And that's fine and all. But now that I feel like she's a little bit bigger, she's a little bit more self-sufficient, I feel like it's time for me to do something for me, because I don't want to end up like my mom.
Because I don't want to say this is the case. I'm just exploring it. I'm wondering, like, even now that she's retired, okay, her life was a life of obligation. Now that she's retired, there is no obligation. All she does is shop and hoard. So it's
Yeah.
still like she's like trying to avoid some type of feeling, underlying feeling. And
I
so,
don't I think sometimes maybe too she's like, my mom has never, she's never remarried. Like she had a boyfriend for a while, but she doesn't have like a partner. Like she doesn't have a significant other. She never, like she had a boyfriend like when I was a teenager. I think they were together for a little while, probably like, I don't, time escapes me, but they were together for a while. And now, after they broke up, my mom has never like had another boyfriend. Like she's never, like she doesn't date, she doesn't do anything. And I don't know if she misses like companionship, so she just does other stuff, or if it's I don't know if it's something that actually bothers her or if it doesn't bother her. But then again, that scares me too, because for instance, I have a boyfriend. I live with my boyfriend, but I also am like my mom in the aspect where it's like, unfortunately, I let people know that I don't need them. Like if my boyfriend was to leave today, I'm gonna be fine. Like I'm gonna figure it out. I'm very like in like I feel like my mom was very like, this is how it's gonna go, or you're not gonna be with me, and I'm the same way. But luckily, the person that I have,
But she may seem like really like that's a hard line with her. There's
yeah,
no negotiation
yeah,
about that. But then she kind of, it's a way to avoid her feelings.
probably. Maybe she doesn't want to get hurt again. Maybe she doesn't want to get, her world shattered again. So maybe that's why she's been single for 1,000 years. So maybe that's what it is.
Yeah, yeah.
I think so, because my mom is very like, you're either gonna be this or that's it, and that's kind of how it's been, and I think that's why she's been single for so long.
Got it. Got it. I again, I'm just exploring. That's very traumatic with having her sister being murdered.
Yeah,
That's and after experiencing that, it's gonna be hard. I don't know how she processed her,
I don't either.
because if she already suppresses her feelings, doesn't really want to feel like, already tries to avoid her feelings, and then you have that traumatic situation happen,
Yeah,
it's like it'll linger on in other ways if you
yeah.
don't properly deal with it.
I know she's kind of like, my mom is not very. She's not very much of like a. She's not very much of a talker. Like she's not an affectionate person, and I'm not affectionate. And I try to be more affectionate, like especially to my daughter, because my mom wasn't affectionate with me. Like my mom never hugged me. I try to hug my daughter all the time. Like I try to like kiss on her or tell her I love her, because that's not what I had from my mom. So I try to do the opposite. But I also realize that a lot of my mom has, like the same way my mom can get agitated fast, I get agitated fast. So like my daughter will do something and then I'll scream at her, but then I'll feel bad that I screamed at her. And like it's like a it's like a constant like battle. Like I don't know how to like, it's like I'm angry, but it's not necessarily, I'm angry at everything. Like I'm angry at how my life is going. I'm angry at my situation. I'm just angry, and I don't want to be angry. I want to be happy. Like I want to be pleasant. I don't want to walk around like like so rigid all the time.
If you can seek a, because the way to let go of the anger is because it's a coping mechanism to protect some type of pain. So if you know what it's trying to protect, and you know that underlying feeling, then you can let it go. Like my wife,
Yeah.
she has a terrible concept of time, and like on our second date, she was 40 minutes late, and so she's always late, and it makes me angry, but it makes me feel like I don't matter. But
Yeah.
that's something that I had within myself before I even met her. So
Yeah.
underneath the anger, what do you think is underneath it all?
Frustration from like not being in control, not being like, for instance, I have an argument with my daughter every day about her, like, for instance, she likes to wear the same outfits over and over and over again. Mind you, I spend way too much money on clothes for her. She has a closet full of things. Like, I do everything in my power to make sure that she doesn't have to wear the same outfit at least in a 3 week span. But she will come out of her room on Monday, she will have an outfit on. By Wednesday, she'll be coming out her room in that same outfit. And it irks me so bad to the point where I it's a constant fight. I'm constantly yelling at her
And that
about it.
makes you angry because
It's like, why do you want to keep wearing the same thing over and over again? Why do I work so much to be able to buy you these fucking clothes and these sneakers, and you don't want to fucking wear it, and you just want to wear the same thing over and over again? Why don't you just take the time to not be lazy and pick something else out to wear? Like, why do you like hearing me say the same thing over and over again?
okay,
Like,
okay,
all of those things to me is like, I feel like it's a control thing with me, but I also feel like what the fuck?
okay. I'm not saying that she should be wearing. It's okay, or she should be wearing, the same
Like, I
clothes or
get it.
whatever.
I get it. She's a kid, but it's just so frustrating. It's so frustrating.
What what feelings does that behavior bring up in you in the uh, FWP, failure, worthless, powerless? Like, it's like, oh, I feel disrespected. I do all this, and you don't follow my words.
Yeah. I feel like I feel like, and I think maybe this is with for instance, I'm spoiled, right? My grandfather spoiled me. Any clothes that I want, any sneakers that I want, anything I want, I got it. And my daughter's the same way. Anything she asks for, she has. She has. I just bought her a gamer laptop. I just she got AirPods. She has a PlayStation 4. She has the Xbox. She has the new Jordan. She has anything that she asks for. And I'm the type of person, like, if my daughter asks me for something and I don't get it for her, I feel bad. Like, I feel like I'm not a good mother, right? Because she's my only kid. So if I can't buy it for you, then who the fuck am I gonna buy it for, right? So if I'm killing myself to take care of you, and I'm killing myself to buy you these sneakers and to buy you these clothes and to make sure you look presentable and to make sure, that I I take care of you, then it's like to me it's like a slap in the face when you want to wear dirty clothes. Like, why do you want to wear dirty clothes with that you just spilled, stuff on at school, 3 days ago, instead of wearing clean clothes that I just bought you? Like, what the hell's the problem?
So it's
And
like
it's
not being
frustrating.
in control,
Yeah.
feeling powerless.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, this I just want to just touch upon this. I don't want to I just want to explore this. Is that I know I keep coming back to this, but like what your mother's family on your mom's side of the family, what they experience with your mother's sister, completely out of control,
Yeah.
completely powerless, nothing they could do.
No.
And so a coping mechanism of bringing past family trauma into our current lives is to like then try to be in control. But it's like a coping mechanism from that time where they were completely out of control. Something happened that was just out of all of their expectations.
Yeah. I definitely feel like I have control issues. Like, if I'm not in control of the situation, or if I feel like somebody's not listening to me, then I'm angry. Like, I'm super angry. Like, it's literally from like 1 to 100. And like, me and my boyfriend argue about it all the time because it's like I yell. So if I say something and I feel like you're not listening to me, immediately I start screaming. There's no like really saying it again or like a no build up. If I said it once, you didn't listen, and now that's it. Now
So
I'm
when
screaming.
he doesn't
I'm going
listen,
off the
it
handle.
it makes you feel like you're not in control.
Yeah, because I feel like you should be listening to what the fuck I'm saying. I know what I'm talking about, so listen to me. I don't just say shit to say it. Like,
Got it.
I'm saying what's right.
Got it. So when you connect with that need to be in control at all times, and just kind of like, you can even close your eyes just for a moment, because this allows you to feel, okay? And to pull up a movie screen, a miniature movie screen right in front of you, right in front of your eyes. And when you first notice the need to be in control, like in the anger around it, when you feel like you're out of control, I want you to pull up in your movie screen and visualize your mother and her, her family all around her, feeling completely powerless, that her own beloved sister was murdered by her very own husband. Somebody in the like who entered and became part of the family, and like you lose all trust for the world when you experience that. You can open your eyes when you're ready. How did that feel and resonate with you?
I feel like I need to be in control. I feel like if I'm not in control, it's not a good feeling for me. It doesn't sit right with me, and I think
Oh,
that's why.
and then you're trying to say you wanted to reach this point of like success or an entrepreneurship, and you gotta make your way. Like your entrepreneurs know there's no roadmap except the ones that you
Yeah,
create. So like things are not going to go your way, and you're going
and
to
that's
be out of
why I'm
control, and you're
struggling.
going to figure it out. So maybe the block is that you can't be in control because you got to figure it out. You got to create your own path. When you're creating your
Yeah.
own path, you're not going to know what are all the perfect steps are going to be.
Yeah.
And so if you can, we'll introduce the FAST method. So feeling is healing. Accept that everything is a part of the plan of the creator. So what you're going through is going to be a catapult, an opportunity for your healing and transformation, for the life that to be the person that you're meant to be. You can't live without it, without going through it. And then S is surrender control. Okay, to allow God to be in control, to allow the creator to be in control. Because only the creator is in control. And so needing to be in control isn't a, because we can't be in control of everything in this universe. It's impossible. And if you surrender control, then the love, peace, the wisdom, and power of the creator can flow through you. Okay. And T is to have trust and faith that everything will work out. Or you can say T's, I'm trying to play around with, is really your true self, because that's your source of power, peace, and wisdom. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So really practice that, surrendering control, do the FAST method,
Mm-hmm.
and then also practicing pulling up in that miniature movie in front of you where your family is completely out, not in control, completely powerless, completely blindsided, and something, the worst happened. The very worst happened. So it's not really like you're a failure, because like you think like, because failure sometimes I notice this within myself and with people that I work with. It's like it's more of a surface feeling. Underneath that is something else, and so it's like failure, but it's really you're not in control.
Mm-hmm.
You can have the power and peace and the wisdom and the love that you want if you actually surrender control. As much
It's
as that,
still a
it's like
struggle.
it sounds like blasphemy, you know.
Yeah, it does, but I get it. Like I understand that this this journey that it's like I'm at two opposites. Trying to be an entrepreneur is nothing that you can control for the most part, but it's like I feel like once I'm successful at it, I'll be in control of how my life can go. But this journey of figuring it out is controlless, which is why I feel so like so scattered because
So
I
so when you surrender control to allow love to be in control is when you're going to be successful, is when you're going to be
yeah,
powerful, is when you're going to be a shining light for your family, for your daughter.
yeah, it's just letting go.
Well,
That's the
you
hard
tell
part.
yourself surrender control, but you gotta practice visualizing that I'm in my mother's movie. I'm in my past family, the trauma.
Hmm.
Like I'm in that movie. Not just your mother, but the whole family. Their parents,
It's everybody
and you
else's
were
shit.
born into that. You were only
Yeah.
like I don't know, a few months old or 1 year old. So that's what you were born in. That just happened. And then your mother doesn't deal with her feelings. She's not affectionate. She probably is, but she doesn't know how to deal with her feelings.
Hmm. I feel like
So
she's not affectionate with. She's more affectionate with my brother than with me. But I think that's also because she. I don't think she knows how to be, and then I'm not affectionate with her, so she doesn't really know how to do it.
I think that her sister just was murdered, and it's just like she didn't know how to process anything. So I think like did that happen? You said for 5 months.
Huh?
You said for 5 months. I said my wife is banging on the door. I mean the floor. Hold on a second. What? I don't know what she's doing. Anyways, um,
So the first 5 months that I was born,
was so
it was
was your you say her sister was murdered? Was that like after the 5 months?
that was after I was born. I have pictures
Okay.
with her, so she was here.
Okay.
So I
Okay. Okay.
don't
Got it. Got it.
know what she was going through. Like
Okay.
she
Okay.
was
Got it. Got it.
in
I don't know. I don't
here.
know. Okay. Okay.
But I think my aunt was killed like when I was a baby. But I definitely have pictures of her holding me, so I was here. But it was definitely when I was a baby that
Got
it
it. Got it.
happened.
Got it. Got it. Okay. Um, I think we're about coming to a close. My wife
Yeah.
is telling me to probably help out take care of the baby. I've been up here all by myself.
Yes, it's okay. This is
But
definitely helpful.
any last questions, thoughts, or feelings?
Um, is there anything like you recommend as far as like working through it? Like, should I try to like write stuff down? Should I like try to like think like
I think to me
any type of
what centers me is to combine meditation and journaling. So what I
okay?
do is I have my journal, I sit down. It's not just meditate and just breathe and focus on your breath. Just feel. Feeling is healing. Like I don't avoid that because like I wake up like I feel like uncomfortable, negative or something, or I go to bed feeling that way. And instead of avoiding it, I'll just like maybe like I can go on my phone or right. But instead of that,
Yeah.
I'll just focus on that core feeling. I can feel it. I feel it. I meditate on it, and I meditate my thoughts. And I use the FIST, the proof process. Okay, what is my emotion? What is the problem that's bothering me? What is my worst for your worst case scenario? How does that make me feel? The FWP and why? Oh, whose
Okay.
movie am I in? So that's what I do as a tool. And this is something about like my podcast talks about it, but I in 2 weeks I'm launching a membership support group,
Hmm.
a support community. So it's people in who get the path, and you need it's
Hmm.
a spiritual emotional grind,
Hmm.
and it keeps on. We had to keep on evolving. We're gonna keep on falling. We have to keep on getting up, and every time we do, we get stronger. So that
Hmm.
community allows for because when you hear my story and it helps,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Everybody hearing your story, how powerful is that going to be? And then when you hear other people's stories, the more and
Hmm.
more stories you hear, like, wow, I'm not alone. And you learn from other people. I'm
Yeah.
learning from when you tell me something, every time I see a client, my eyes already get bigger and bigger and I learn more. And you just,
Hmm.
you heal through that. And
Hmm.
so that's the community about is healing together, growing together, transforming together. Um,
Hmm.
so, I mean, I can send you more information. It's only like open price is $39 a month, and I
Hmm.
do 2 live interactive workshops where it's coactive healing,
Hmm.
um, and then you have a private Facebook community. So
Mhm.
I think that's something. Um, yeah, that's what I'll. That's another thing. That's another avenue.
Well,
Yeah,
congratulations on that.
yeah.
So
Thank you.
it's definitely helpful to other people, and this is definitely helpful. So thank you for offering it, and thank you, for your time and walking me through it.
Got
I
it.
know I
Got it.
got a whole bunch of shit to work on, but I'm
No, it was
working
good. It
on
was it
it.
was very eye
So,
opening. All
all
right.
right,
Thank
no
you so
worries.
much,
Thank
Tia.
you. It was a
Appreciate
pleasure
it.
meeting you, and
Yeah,
thank you
yeah.
for your time.
Thank you.
I'll
All right.
talk to you soon.
Talk to you. Bye.
Bye.
Can you believe what you just witnessed? Now, this is what I'm talking about, the power of intergenerational trauma healing. Think about, apply the process onto yourself and think about how you could be living in somebody else's movie thinking it's your own. Can you just imagine that the pain of feeling powerless because her because the pain that Tia feels for her daughter wearing the same outfit on Monday and Wednesday, and she just can't stand it. She doesn't understand why, and it's the feeling of powerlessness, and this is what's happening at the surface. But really, at the core of it all is that past family trauma of her mother's sister being murdered by her very own husband, who was a serial killer, and it's the trauma of the family that was completely blindsided. So this is a testament. This is not an isolated incident. This is for you, especially if you're highly sensitive and highly empathic, to see, identify your feelings, and after you do that, ask yourself, whose movie am I in? Do that with your past family members. Uncover the past family trauma. And so, if you want to learn more about this process, if you want to apply it to yourself, you can go to my website, heal, HEAL, from the groundup.com. We're doing a lot of exciting things. Not only do I have a podcast, Heal from the Ground Up, you can go check that out. Also, you can get set up private sessions with me, one-on-one. You book that through my website. Also, I'm launching a support community because we learn from each other. As you watch this episode, you watch this session, you learn from Thea. You learn so much about yourself. And the more stories that you listen to, and the more in this community, the more we share with each other, that is when we grow and heal and transform on a level that is amplified, that has a synergistic effect. And so this community, I call it, and the website, actually, I bought it. It is yatfs.us. Can you believe what YATF stands for? Stands for that. Name of my book, You Are the Fucking Shit. Believe it or not, .com was already taken by Youngstown Area Tropical Fish Society, basically a non-profit organization protecting tropical fish in some region in the U.S. But it all works out because .us is about the community, and it's about bringing people together who are experiencing anxiety, worry, fear, anger, frustration, and depression, bringing them together to learn the emotional strength FIST process to get to the root of all their negative emotions, feelings, and problems through the power, the healing power of intergenerational trauma healing, so you can shine your light onto the world. It's about separating from this pain. But after that, it's about living out your reason for existence, living out your true self, your greatest gift to the world, and the greatest gift to yourself. Thank you, everyone, for listening. See you next week.